Hey guys, welcome back to another show of Motivational Monday. So this week we're finishing up the 10 things required to create lasting change. So if you haven't had a chance, I'd suggest check out the previous part on YouTube at Restoration Mastery. Today we're going to cover sections 5 through 10. But let me start by sharing the importance of change and how it impacts our development. So if you've ever been to a circus, you've noticed that these massive elephants are being controlled by as a rope and a stake in the ground. Now, does this 7,000-pound animal have the ability to break free? Of course it does, right? So why doesn't it, right? Why doesn't it break loose? Well, here's why. As a baby elephant, it's restrained by being tied to a rope and a stake in the ground, okay? And as it begins in the first few days, it begins to fight and struggle and tug, but it can't pull it loose, right? It can't come out of the ground because it isn't strong enough, right? And eventually, it just accepts the fact that it needs to stop fighting and it just quits, right? But as we know, the elephants don't stay that small for very long. They grow up to be these massive, powerful freaking animals, right? And they could actually escape the grasp of the rope, but it doesn't. It still doesn't. It doesn't fight, doesn't struggle, doesn't do anything. Why doesn't it, right? It's a massive beast that can easily escape, but it doesn't know that. It doesn't know that it can actually escape because it's accepted the fact that the stake in the ground, it has control over it, right? And it's accepted its own limitations. And that's the problem. People are like elephants. At a very young age, we have these big, huge dreams, right? To be an athlete or an astronaut or a musician, you name it. But you know what happens in the first year that you go to school, right? You get your teachers, your friends, they make fun of you. They start laughing at you, right? And they start to point out that your dreams are ridiculous, and so we start to shrink them at that point, and that's when we start. So we're tricked into believing that we have a rope and a stake at our ankles at that point, and we begin to accept limitations that are not true, right? And the rope and the stake, they're metaphors, right, for the cage that we build around ourselves. So the reality is these limitations, right, they're not real. You've accepted the fact that society has imposed these things upon you and you've built these walls around you and now you become this, right? And as a result, people don't live their full potential. And they're asking why? Well, that's exactly why. And so here's the harsh reality, okay? Here's the truth. You don't have limits. What you do have is you have freaking excuses, right? The excuses that you make on a daily basis, that's what creates the cage that you live in. Right? You've created it yourself by telling you this ridiculous story that keeps playing in your mind and you're not willing to accept it. And once you are, if you are, sometimes you're not willing to do the freaking work that it takes to make the change. So here's my story for you. Stop being an elephant and get yourself a new story. With that said, guys, let's jump into 6 through 10. Let's blast through it because I want to get you some techniques on what you can do. If you haven't seen the first part, go back to YouTube and check that out. Right. Number 6, learn to embrace uncertainty. Learn to embrace uncertainty. The quality of your life is in direct proportion to your ability to be around uncertainness. All right? Be okay with being uncertain. Be okay with being uncomfortable. This produces growth. And so if you begin to accept that, it's going to be easier for you to understand, okay, I'm about to grow. Times are uncertain, but this is the time that I'm going to be able to learn lessons and grow. Number 7, instill in yourself the responsibility to serve the greater good. Okay? Instill in yourself the responsibility to serve the greater good. What does that mean? That means that once you've been able to handle your stuff, right? This really should be almost at the end, but once you're able to handle your own stuff, at that point, go teach other people how to do it. Go teach and go give to other people so that way they can learn too. And as you teach them, you yourself grow as well. Number 8, understand that problems and happiness are not related. Understand that problems and happiness are not related. As a matter of fact, for us, problems, we need to begin to look at problems as opportunities, right? When we have problems, if we identify those things as problematic, we begin to identify those in a certain way that hinder our thinking. If we then put on a different pair of glasses and say, hey, this actually is an opportunity, then your brain begins to look at this differently and say, okay, if it's an opportunity, what have I learned? What can I learn? What can I change in the future? And this way, the problem, the perception of the problem, actually begins to serve you. Then you can use it for the future. Next one is cultivate powerful emotions, or cultivate power emotions. Power emotions like gratitude, faith, compassion, courage. Courage is one of the things that if you haven't exercised that in a while, I encourage you to do it. I encourage the courage. How do you like that? So, but the part of the truth here is that when we become uncomfortable and we get to a place where we're not sure what we should do, but courage is really the next step, then we need to begin to understand to lean into the discomfort. Lean into the discomfort instead of going away from it or blocking it off. Lean into it, and that is you practicing, okay, your muscle, practicing your courageous muscle. Try that. I guarantee that's going to work. I encourage you to do it. And then last but not least is realize that there's not only one path. There's no one way to do all these things. There's no one way to understand that you can create lasting change. This is a framework that has worked for me and my staff, and we continue to use this framework to grow. But for you and yourself, know that there's no magic formula. This is a framework, and things will change, and they're going to become fluid. And that's going to be important for you to understand. You have to be very flexible when you're going through this stuff. So in order for you to create lasting change, you have to go back to the story of the elephant, and you have to understand that change is crucial to your growth. We'll catch you next time, guys. Peace.